Hello again, everyone. I am here today with a follow-up about this little watercolor setup that I have shown on the channel before. So I'll put a link down below to the video where I unboxed this and showed you the initial setup. I have since modified it a little bit, so I kind of wanted to go over what's in here. So this I purchased from Atlas Stationers, and I have seen this particular model of Galen wallet, which is what this is, on Atlas Stationers and on Galen's original website. Those are the only two places that I have seen this particular configuration of wallet. So I will put a link down below to the Atlas Stationers version, if assuming they still have them. If not, I'll put the direct Galen leather link. And again, I'll put the original unboxing video that was from Atlas Stationers down below. So in that video, I showed that I was using this as sort of a watercolor setup, but I have since changed it. And one of the changes is, and I'll get to the insides here shortly, one of the changes is that I had a Traveler's Company fountain pen in here, and I swapped it out for this Kaweco Sport. So essentially, I'm not a huge fan of the Traveler's Company pens for sketching, and I think part of that is just the design of the pen. It just doesn't seem comfortable to me. So for sketching, that is. So I have purchased this Kaweco All Sport in a rose gold. I got this off of Amazon, and it was very inexpensive on Amazon compared to what it normally is. I will put a link down below to that, but just note that prices fluctuate, so it it might not be a great deal by the time you get to it, but that's what I've used. What I really like about the All Sports is that they're aluminum, so they're lightweight and yet very sturdy. And they're a little bit more sturdy than the plastic models, but they're not as heavy as, say, a brass model. So you kind of get the durability without the weight. So it's kind of nice for sketching. And there is an extra fine nib on this. And what I am planning to do today also is do a little inventory on a little sheet of paper as to what I have in here and put it in one of the pockets in here. That way, if I happen to be missing something, I can just look at that little inventory sheet and know what is supposed to be in this setup. So I do have this little notebook here. This was actually a little mini notebook that came for free with one of my orders from Van Ness Pens, so I figured this would be a good time to use it. I actually have already started filming this video and had to restart because I had problems with this pen. Basically, I don't know if it was the paper or what, but I was trying to write on this paper with this pen, and all of a sudden it really just started gushing out of the nib. And I realized that my nib was not completely seated, and I think that's what it was. So when I tried writing again, it worked fine. So let's go ahead and try that today. So these nibs are swappable, and I actually did swap this nib from another All Sport. The metal ones you can swap. The plastic ones are a little bit harder. So this is an extra fine. I swapped it with another one. It was originally just a fine, I believe. So let's see. So this is a Kaweco All Sport with an extra fine nib. And this is in the rose gold. And this has Birmingham iron girder in it. And that is a permanent ink. Yeah, it was definitely just the fact that the nib was not seated in there. And that was my fault. So I've filled it with a converter for the Kawecos. This one works pretty well, actually. I've heard a lot of complaints about the efficacy of this converter, but I have actually found it to be pretty good and pretty easy to use. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work to seat it down into where it needs to connect. But once you get that in there, it seems to be fine. I haven't had any leaking issues, which was one thing I thought, or I wondered whether it would be an issue because of the sort of the very precarious little pull mechanism here, but it's been fine. And I'm just going to write off onto the side again to see. And I'm wondering if it was dumping ink because I was just using a single sheet of paper or what was going on. It was a very unpleasant discovery. So it doesn't seem like I'm having those troubles anymore. So let's hope that stays the case. All right, so that is the pen that I have here, and this was essentially meant to hold a little pocket pen in this area here, which is quite nice. So now I'm going to go on to the inside, where currently I have two little Kaweco Lilliputs. One is a brass model. That's just because this is the one I have and I wanted to put two separate inks in here for sketching. So this one is the black, obviously, and this is the brass. And the brass one I got really inexpensively secondhand, which is why I feel okay kind of throwing it in a little kit like this. I'll go into what inks are in those in just a minute, but for now I'm also going to show you these brushes that I've put in here. So I have put in here, this is a watercolor setup, so these are all watercolor brushes. So I've put this Kolinsky mop in size 3/0 in here. I'm actually going to wet my fingers a little bit and put down the little bits there. And then this one is a Raphael in a very small size. I can't remember if this is synthetic or if it is squirrel hair or if it's a combination of both, but it's pretty good for small details, which is why I included that one. The first one was more of an all-rounder. And then this is the Silver Black Velvet Voyage Round in size 6. And this one is a little bit smaller than the first one, and it's a little bit softer. So I kind of have a variety. I have sort of an all-rounder, I have a softer brush in this one, and then I also have one that's more for details. So, and then I have a little art toolkit watercolor palette here. And this is the original colors here. This is, I've added some. So these are the original colors that came in this set that's no longer available. They do a variety of you know, guest artists that they will do a little palette for, and this was one for the author of the Draw Your Day book, which is actually quite a cool little book if you want to learn how to just kind of go about and do daily sketches. And then I have added a few colors, but I actually forget which colors these are. So I do need to go back and swatch these for this. So I think this was the same watercolor palette. Oh, actually I don't want to put that there because I want to put it in a little thing. So this actual pouch has a little flap here, which is where I'm putting the brushes and the little fountain pens here. And then inside here it has a little card pocket and then just sort of an open area. So I've been putting this in the card pocket, and then I also plan to put this little inventory in the card pocket as well. I'm going to finish that up with one of these little Lilliputs here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that back in. I sort of wondered whether I would want to put two of these in there and do it that way. Originally I had a smaller palette here, but I opted to decide to put more fountain pens in there so I could have different colors and do different color sketching. So this is, like I said, the Kaweco Lilliput, which is a very small fountain pen. Actually, I probably should go out just a little bit to make sure I'm in frame for everything. And it's very small, but once it is, actually I do want to move that clip so that it's not interfering with my hand. But once you get it into its full position, it's actually quite a decent sized pen, and because it is so small, it's kind of nice to have for sketching. So this is the Kaweco Lilliput in a medium nib, and this is the brass. And then in here I have Dia Trementis Document Urban Gray. Oops. Okay, And then I'm going to inventory the rest of the things with the last pen I have in here, which is a black Kaweco Lilliput, which is also made out of metal, so it's pretty sturdy. And this has another extra fine nib, or does it? Yeah, it's extra fine. And so this is a Kaweco Lilliput in an extra fine nib. And this is the black. And then what I have in here is Diatramentis Document Black. And I'll actually show you how I have these in here before I do the rest of the inventory. So it opens just like any other fountain pen with this nib unit coming off. And so this is the squeeze type converter. So I'm going to tell you right now that these absolutely suck. I really wanted a converter where I could use whatever ink I wanted with the Lilliputs, and these little squeeze converters are specifically made for this. And once you try to squeeze the ink in, you get hardly any ink in here. So I tried squeezing with the nib on, I tried squeezing with just the converter. I couldn't get it any more than half full. So what I ended up doing was filling it with a syringe. I pulled the ink from the bottle up into a syringe that's specifically made for fountain pen stuff, and then put it into that little converter. The same is true for this one. You can actually get cartridges in Diatramentis Document Black, but you cannot get cartridges in the Urban Gray. So that's what this is. So you can see, yeah, so you can see the ink a little bit better in that one. I don't know why you can't see it very well in the other. That's kind of interesting, because that one's more clear and this one has more of a milky appearance. But they're the same. They're the same converters. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's just reacting with the black or what the deal is there. So, okay, so that's pretty much the whole setup, but let me go ahead and write down what these other things are. So I have a rosemary, Rosemary and Co. Kolinsky mop in 3-0. And I would know that these are all travel size. So the next one is a Raphael. I think it's just a size 1. I think it's just, let's say round, because I think that's what it is. And then we have a silver black velvet Voyage round in a number 6. Okay. And then for the watercolor palette, it is an art toolkit. I'm going to say it's a silver palette. And then I'm just going to say, draw your day. Draw your day palette. Because then I'll know what the color scheme is. So, so all of these pens work great for sketching. I generally prefer a finer line, so that's why I have 2 extra fines in here. But the medium is sometimes nice to get a little bit of a broader line, and I did that with the lighter colored ink of the Document Gray. So one other nice thing about these pens with the clips on them is that they will hold the items in place and keep them from rolling off, because it essentially works as a roll stop there. So let me go ahead and take this little thing off here. And I do believe that Van S Pens sells these little notebooks. I don't know what they're called, but I'm sure you could just look through notebooks if you're interested in something like this. It is fountain pen friendly, but it's not super amazing paper. And as you can see, when I had issues with this pen bleeding, it bled all the way through almost immediately. And I think if you had a really wet ink or a broad nib, it might not work so well with this, but as you can see, when I started to write smaller, it worked just fine. So I'm going to, I think we're all dry here. Yep. That Diatramentus ink dries pretty fast, which is also why it's really great for sketching, because it's permanent. All of these inks are permanent, so you can watercolor over all of them. If you wanted to do a sort of like a pen and ink sketch with where the ink would bleed, you could of course put some kind of water-soluble ink in there. And I'm just going to put that back in this little pocket back there, and then that's the complete set. So I don't think it matters what order those end up being inside, but this is so compact. I mean, this is super tiny. And this is a super tiny little notebook. I mean, you can see it by compared to my hands. I have small hands. This is super small. It's a little bit heavy, mostly because of the amount of materials that I have in here. The watercolors tend to be heavy. The brass Lilliput tends to be a little heavy, and the brushes vary. But it's actually pretty compact and nice. And this you could just kind of throw in a bag, and you could just, as long as you had your sketchbook and some water, you are good to go. And oftentimes I will carry a little Nalgene bottle with water and just use that. So that is that. All right, well, that's it for today. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. And I hope to see you next time, but in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.